This world was an authoritarian world. The fact never changed throughout time. We always screamed for the common good, for justice. Yet, the truth differed. The world remained an authoritarian state in the 21st century. This kind of things would never change as long as humans were still humans. No matter which era, no matter which civilization. Like I said, the two questions are whether we have the power to rival God has one and how should we gather the other parts of the Buddha. Zheng said. If the Buddha is split into multiple parts, we have to verify how many parts, find out which parties obtained them, and obtain these parts all within 7 days. Jonathan said he left the tomb 3 months ago. Other parties might have entered the tomb during this time. Plus, the yellow turbans were chasing him so the tomb could be danger-free. Other parties would definitely snatch the rest of the Buddha upon entering the tomb. It possessed an anti-gravity nature after all. Zheng twirled his hair and exhaled. We will split into 2 groups from now on. The yellow turbans only grow stronger with time. So I will stay with the Buddha. Jonathan, Imhotep, Ang Sunamuan, Tenyi, Luyu, and Yanwei go with me to the tomb. The rest stay here on standby. Once we verified the Buddha was split, you have to figure out a way to obtain the other parts. What do you think, Xian? Yanwei immediately said, no, I want to go to the other team. Zheng frowned. He knew of the conflict between Hung and the woman. It was Hung's fault and no one had the right to become involved. However, the situation was dire when a team wipe was on the line. He couldn't let Yanwei and Hung stay in the same group. The only danger the first group would face was the yellow turbans. Zheng assigned those without power to this group in order to protect them and not weight down the other group. Zheng thought over it for a second and said, we are in a bonus mission. Don't drag your personal feelings to the mission. Everyone's life depends on it. Yanwei returned with a cold laugh. I don't want to live anyway. Why should I care about other people's lives? You can either kill me here or let me go with the other group. Hung was frightened from her words. He held her from behind and said in a panic while she struggled. She's just blinded by anger. I can guarantee she won't do anything. Trust me, she won't cause any trouble for the team, Xian. She doesn't have the power to cause any troubles. So don't think of her as a potential issue. Zheng looked to Xian then said to Hung, don't be stupid. I won't doubt you. I know her situation so you will decide where she goes. You should know the danger that accompanies the respective group. Hung hesitated seeing Zheng was accommodating. He could see which group was more dangerous after all this time. Zheng's group had near zero danger due to him and Imhotep. The second group might have to split up again which further increased their danger level. He actually wished for Yanwei to be in the first group. Yanwei said, I know you too well. You want me to stay in group 1 using my safety as the excuse. I don't even care for my life anymore. What else should I care? Hung sighed. He was afraid of Yanwei doing something stupid to threaten the team. Zheng would overlook it because of him but Xian on the other hand. Then let her come with group 2. I will protect her. We won't weight the team down even at the cost of our lives. Hung said aloud. Zheng also sighed. He walked over and patted Hung's shoulder. I only fear that you won't tell us your difficulties even when your life is on the line. Who do you think we are? People that will kill their comrades to get rid of potential troubles. I will leave it for you to decide. Just keep in mind that Team China will not abandon any comrades. Hung gave Zheng a grateful look then turned to Xian. Xian's attitude was more worrying than Zheng's. Hung truly feared that Yanwei would accidentally die in this movie under some scheme. He would be forever drowned in torment. Xian handed the map to Zheng then took out several silver plates. These things can receive signals in a large radius. The plates consume psyche energy to communicate. However, energy consumption for us is 5 times the normal rate. I stored enough energy for a month's use. Don't use it unless it's something important. We will need 1 for each person in group 2 so group 1 only gets 2 pieces. Xian paused as he looked over the team. That's basically our situation. You will also take care of the sleeping members. And this he took out a pair of glasses that looked the same as the pair he was wearing. The lenses also had no corrections. Zheng received the glasses and asked, do you want me to wear these glasses? What for? Or do you want them to become Team China symbol? Zheng shivered at the image of everyone in the team wearing the same glasses, staring at each other with emotionless faces, and spitting out logical words. Xian obviously had no idea what Zheng was thinking and continued. It's not for you. When you feel safe enough, put these glasses on Yinkong and attach these 2 electrodes to your temple. That's basically it. What do you mean by basically it? Zheng shouted at him. There's definitely a trap. Don't ever think I won't speak out because of your emotionless face. I have said it time and time again to let me know of any schemes beforehand. Don't make me look like an idiot after the fact every time. I am speaking to you. Turn your head around. Xian had turned to the rest of the team already. We are in group 2 from now on. The safety of the Buddha head, the sleeping members, and the tomb after obtaining the rest of the Buddha are not our concern. What you need to do is follow my orders. Even if I tell you to die, you must die. Why does this warning feel like he will actually make us kill ourselves if he had to be done? Was written on everyone's face, aside from Zero. Though no one dared to speak out. Hung only wished to sink to the background in silence in case Xian still held anything against Yanwei. He did not want to draw Xian's attention. Now let's head back to Shanghai. The groups received their respective responsibilities after the assignment. Zheng grumbled at Qian, especially with concern to the glasses, would they cause any harm to Yinkong or him? Though he set the grumbling away and head off on the sky sticks. He piloted one and Tenyi piloted another with baskets hanging beneath carrying the 3 movie characters and the sleeping members off to Shangzi, where the tomb was located. The rest of the team were given a sky stick to each member. Before long, they received a message from Shangzi. Zheng said this world would progress according to history if they could gather the Buddha in whole. Otherwise, a storm would overtake the world and alter history. Despite Zheng's grumbling at Qian, he was not mad knowing the glasses were an item that could potentially aid the sleeping members. He still complained about Qian's secrecy though. Zheng. I have a grandma to take care of and an infant. Jonathan begged in the basket for Zheng to release him. The flying Buddha head wasn't valuable enough to risk his life. He would be grateful to pass this trouble to someone else. The mystery surrounding the tomb drove even such greedy person away. Jonathan intended to leave back in Shanghai. He never expected Zheng to bring him along and it was too late now. Zheng said, please. I know who's in your family more than you do. Stop begging using the Chinese way. Where did you find this map? Isn't this what Chinese people like to hear? Jonathan mumbled. I forgot how the map came about. Think it was from an antique stall or it somehow came to me after I arrived in China. Strange that I can't even remember where it is from. Zheng also felt strange. Other people might forget an item's origin but not Jonathan. He would never forget anything related to treasures, money, gold. This was a treasure map after all to the eyes of the inhabitants of this world since they could not see the message. Is this part of the back door? That the map will end up in Team China or a yellow-skinned person this way. Once the map is in a movie character close to the targets, they will naturally see it and become forced to enter the Sky Tower. The Mummy's world is special after all. It has lots of bonus missions and the only revival tool in this realm. Which means there's a high chance of the map coming to the player's hands. These thoughts ran through Zheng's mind. He felt the speculation was close to the truth. However, how did ancient people predict what happened in the Mummy's world? Including human history, World War I, World War II, the distribution of countries, the languages, the cultures. It was impossible to know such future thousands of years prior. Could it be that God had intelligence and a mind? Was it the one who created all the worlds in this realm using human culture? The truth of ancient humans and the secrets of their civilization will have to wait until Qian and Tenyi decipher the documents. What was the relationship between saints and cultivators? What is God's realm? Zheng remained in the third stage for nearly the entire flight. He pondered on the mysteries and the bonus mission. However, he was neither Honglu nor Qian so his thoughts carried his subjectivity. He was only able to see a blurry image of the future. If I guessed it right, Qian's planning to use the thing he used on Hao Tian in The Lord of the Rings. The sky sticks flew into Shangzai's boundary. Understood. The Buddha is gone. An army of 5,000 guards the entrance. I agree with the decision to not draw the army's attention since you have to stay there for a week. Keep yourselves hidden until we obtain all the parts of the Buddha. Qian placed a silver plate next to his ear. He said while looking at the rest of his group. 0, Wang Xia, Heng, and Cheng Xia were major combat forces of the team. Their group of 6 had to gather all of the Buddha's pieces in 7 days, from over the whole China or perhaps the whole world. Qian folded the silver plate then put it into his shirt pocket. He turned to the group again. The basic situation is all pieces of the Buddha are gone. Yan Zishan's army blockaded the tomb. The Buddha pieces are likely to be in the hands of 3 powers, the Communist Party, the Japanese army, and the Kuomintang. They might also be in foreign forces but the possibility is low. This is during the height of World War II so it's not likely for them to come to China and seize the Buddha. Zero asked, what now? Find the Buddha. We must know how many powers entered the tomb. Our time is short, 6.5 days, so we won't have the time to investigate all the powers that appeared. Qian exhaled. 0, go to Chongqing. I might have you meet Chiang Kai-shek. Which you probably won't be allowed to given your identity. So I authorize you to use any means to meet him, killing, kidnapping, bombing, I don't care. When I need to speak to him, you have to be next to him. Can you do it? 0 nodded. Qian then turned to Cheng Xiao. I need you to go to the intersection of Shangzi, Shahar, and Hebei. As a member of the Communist Party, you should know where the officials are located during this time. Do the same as 0. Though you can try to not use brute force since they are our potential allies. You are allowed to reveal your identity and our origin. If they don't believe you, erase a list of all the Communist Party members. He took out a thick stack of papers from the dimensional bag and handed them to Cheng Xiao. Cheng Xiao stared at Qian's bag and said, Doraemon, give me your 4D pocket. I know you have more items inside. Qian ignored him and said to Heng, I have no specific location for you. I need you to arrive at Dongbei by tonight. Take 2 sky sticks, 1 normal and 1 enhanced. You probably have the physical stats to handle the burst speed from the enhanced. Wait for my order there. I might need you to rush to Chongqing or the intersection of Shangzi, Shahar, and Hebei. Be prepared. Heng nodded then thought of something and quickly asked, I can bear the pressure but what about Yan Wei? She can't stand the burst speed. Qian gave him a cold laugh. That isn't my issue. You are the one who decided for her to stay. This is one of the cost. Bear the consequences like a man. It's your decision to revive her and have her stay. So you have to figure it out yourself. Hung smiled bitterly. Xian never forgot anything. It wasn't a possibility of him forgetting in the first place. Wang Xiao, follow me to Shanghai. Before handing out the sky sticks, Xian paused for a second as though he just remembered something. I forgot to tell you, I do not know how many pieces the Buddha is split into. Looking from the bonus mission, the pieces shouldn't be tiny. However, if they are shattered into tiny pieces after we obtain them, we can't gather the key in whole again. If you find the pieces, do your best to protect them. Or else we will die together. Night had fallen by the time Xian and Wang Xiao returned to Shanghai. The curfew left the streets quiet and empty. Occasionally a squad of Japanese soldiers walked by. The foreign settlements, the red light district, and gathering sites with people with power were not affected by the curfew. Normal citizens were always the people affected by such rules. Xian and Wang Xiao floated in the sky standing on their respective sky sticks. Current anti-air systems could not detect this sci-fi item. The night sky further masked them from visible view from the people beneath. Wang Xiao stared at the lighted city and asked Xian, what should we do next? What can we do with just the 5 of us excluding Hung's girlfriend? Xian also stared below quietly. He sighed. Such a strange and wonder feeling. Emotions or perhaps feelings have been coming closer to me the closer I am near the 4th stage. Yet at the same time, my heart's devil is surfacing. Wang Xiao, maybe I shouldn't say this during a mission. Somehow I feel like I am stepping on top of the world. Wang Xiao's heart beat heavily from the shock. He raised his head abruptly and saw Xian looking down with an apathetic expression. His hand reached out as though to grasp the whole world into this hand. This was a Xian that had never appeared before. Wang Xiao suddenly felt a sense of danger, the same sense of danger Zhen gave off when he used the power of the 4th stage before defeating his heart's devil, a raw and instinctive sensation. The sensation lasted for merely an instant. Wang Xiao felt Xian returned normal as he lightly pulled his hand back. Xian calmly said, this state is not good. I will find a solution in the near future. Back to our mission. Our priority is the bonus mission. What can we do? How much do you think we can do? Wang Xiao paused for a moment as though he still hadn't woken up from the shock. He said, we can probably come to a deal with the Kuomintang party and then use technologies or money to trade for their information. Impossible. Xian shook his head. We can use this method if we have several months or half a year. But we only have 6.5 days. Do you have an idea how long 6.5 days is? Fly around the earth several times. 6 to 10 meetings. Or transmit a few messages between hundreds of people. 6.5 days pass in almost a blink of an eye. The Buddha has gone for several months already. It isn't possible to find it using this method. We must employ a different tactic. A different tactic? Brute force. Xian slowly said. Intelligence and strength are relative. The situation determines whether it needs intelligence or strength. However, when intelligence and strength reach a limit, you can brute force through any problem. Our strength is invincible to this world. We have the strength to destroy a country before the atomic weapon is finished because our strength have broken through the limit of this world. Wang Xiao asked with curiosity, then what's the limit of intelligence? Xian snapped his fingers. Intelligence is displayed through deduction, analysis, strategies, etc. The limit of intelligence is foretelling the future. The basis of strength is the individual's raw power and the basis of intelligence is countless sources of information. We do not possess the condition to reach the limit of intelligence, so we can only achieve our goal through strength. Do you see the Japanese army below, Wang Xiao? Xian pointed down at the city. The 2 people were 1,000 meters above the ground, but they could see through this distance. Wang Xiao nodded. Your task is to destroy all of the Japanese army in Shanghai and nearby, but there's no need to kill every last soldier. The furthest you should go is Nanjing. Don't doubt your strength. The weapons in this area cannot damage you despite the limited quantity of energy in the dragon's heart. The weapons are relatively weaker by far. Go on the sky stick and drop plasma bombs. You will soon see your strength, or Team China's strength in this era. The night of June 27, 1940. Shanghai reshuffled. We were strong. Team China was strong. Wang Xiao was aware that they were strong, but this awareness was limited to the teams in the realm. They had been trapped in the realm all this time. Their battles were always against other teams and movie worlds that he had forgotten the end goal of God's realm, evolution. The gap between the players and the real world gradually widened with their growth. Perhaps they might not be to do everything as they pleased in the real world, they were invincible in an era where the atomic weapon had yet been created. Wang Xiao entered the unlocked mode as he rode the sky stick 50 meters above the ground. Fires engulfed the ground. Explosions and shockwaves echoed non-stop. This was the Japanese army settlement in Shanghai with 20,000 soldiers and 30,000 personnels. This settlement had become the logistics division given the victories on their front line. Injured soldiers were transferred to the settlement and new troops received their training here. The Japanese also had soldiers throughout various areas of China. Such an army had the power to repress many incidents normally. Wang Xiao's heart was yelling for him to back out when he first saw the sea of soldiers. But as a soldier himself, the authority of orders were etched into his heart, especially when the order came from Xian. Xian's intelligence and identity as a colonel cut off any path of return with this order. Wang Xiao had no other choice but to move forward, even if it seemed that the road ahead was leading toward hell. He charged into a settlement with tens of thousands. The realization of his strength sunk in after he finally initiated the attack. His improved demon energy increased the mobility of his bombs and could enhance their power. A plasma bomb that had an area of effect of under 20 meters now reached 100 meters. The first plasma bomb detonated along with the demon energy on it. The infrastructures, ground, and everything within its explosion area vaporized in an instant, leaving behind a crater. The heat soon turned the ground into glass and the heat wave blasted out to 3 times the explosion area. No normal humans could survive such heat. Each plasma bomb seized the lives of up to 1,000 when it landed on a crowded area. The settlement soon turned into a ruin after Wang Xia dropped 10 bombs. Once Wang Xia learned of the effects of his demon energy after 10 plasma bombs, he stopped wasting them on non-crowded areas. He detonated bombs on the arsenal. A huge explosion devastated an area of 1,000 meters. Wang Xia then seized a heavy machine gun and began shooting from the air. He filled the ground with dead bodies by himself. While Wang Xia was in the madness of massacre, Xian landed on a main street in Shanghai. A group of Japanese soldiers approached him and without a word, the gauze pistol slipped into his hands. He entered the gun kata form. Shanghai regained its independence, in a sense. Because the city was neither in the hands of the Japanese army nor the Chinese army. The independence came from the city itself. A fact that sounded like a joke turned out to be true with the drastic changes happening in the morning in the city. The number of patrolling cops multiplied. Police shut down Japanese-owned businesses. And more shockingly, squads and squads of captured Japanese soldiers with expressions of fear were being escorted outside the city. Shanghai was borderline bursting into a chaos since the night before. Explosions and gunshots echoed throughout the city. Even greater explosions came from just beyond the city area as though countless cannons were blasting in a battle. 2 Xians on flying swords chased an army of rooted soldiers into the city. Each ball of lightning that descended erased all the soldiers in an area from Earth. Each time the flying sword flew by, all nearby soldiers fell to the ground with needle-sized injuries. These were the power of gods and Xians. Past battles had taught the civilians not to cheer when the Chinese army did not show up. They abode to their role of remaining quiet in the city. That's the basic situation. There's no longer a Japanese army in Shanghai. However, judging from the Japanese soldiers' distribution from nearby the city, they can form into an army in 1 to 2 days. We will destroy them once more when that happens. Xian and Wang Xia sat inside a spacious meeting room. Along them were over 100 men and women with the ratio skewed toward men. There were wealthy people in the 40s, police officers, mafia leaders, and even foreigners. Nearly all people of influence in Shanghai had gathered in this room. The 2 messages these people received in the early morning were the destruction of the Japanese army, and the people who destroyed the army wanted to see them. The Japanese army had proven themselves during World War II, in the year 1940. Their strength ranked first within Asia. Yet, the same army suffered tens of thousands in casualties within one night. Shanghai was seized from their hands. The situation was inconceivable. The people of influence attempted to speculate the identity of the power that destroyed the army and their intent for wanting to see them. However, no answer came to their minds. The cops who relayed the message looked to be in a haste, and thus these people finally gathered before noon. A fat man in police uniform stood up abruptly and wiped the sweat off his face. He read aloud the document on his hand. Yes. Yes. We have captured over 7,300 Japanese soldiers, as Officer Chu Xian stated. Over 18,600 Japanese army personnel. We selected a group of uninjured Japanese personnel to watch the captives imprisoned in a camp. Furthermore, the total number of weapons. Xian waved his hand and said, "That's enough. I know everyone here is influential in Shanghai. Your interests do not swing no matter whether it is the Japanese or the Chinese army occupying Shanghai. Neither do I have the interest to express nationalistic acts. You're here because of one thing. I need to use your information systems." The meeting room erupted. These people were gathered hastily, and Xian did not place much importance in the setup. So everyone was sitting next to people they were familiar with. So everyone started talking to the people next to them. Xian looked at them quietly until the noises died down after a few minutes. Several people then started to speak at the same time. Upon realizing the crash of their voices, they allowed a slender middle-aged man to speak first. He saluted at Xian and said, "A late salutation, but we are grateful for you driving the Japanese away. May I ask, why do you need our information systems? Is it to surveil the Japanese army?" Xian went straight to the point, as though to carry out his method of brute forcing his way. "Not the Japanese army. We need to find an item." The people were surprised to learn that Xian wasn't going after the Japanese army after having just destroyed it and taken over Shanghai. They could foresee the retaliation from the Japanese army. Questions arose among them with Xian's denial. Xian continued, "I believe everyone here is aware of the Buddha from not long before." The middle-aged man nodded. "Yes. Reports say an ancient tomb was unearthed in Shaanxi. The tomb is surrounded by a formation that kills any humans who entered. However, a foreigner managed to escape from the tomb with a floating Buddha head. The Buddha head is our country's treasure. There's no doubt it belongs to us despite not knowing how the head was crafted. We also tracked after this foreigner. Is the Buddha head related to you?" "The Buddha head is only a part. The whole of it should be a floating Buddha statue." Xian snapped his fingers with a smile. "We are cultivators who guarded this Buddha statue for generations because it possesses the power to destroy the world. It appears the Buddha has came into the mortal world. The head is merely a piece, and most of the rest of the statue have been lost. There are 6 days before its destructive power activates. The world will come to an end. We must." He's lying again. Wang Xiao felt a dizziness taking over his head. He never knew Xian was such a good liar. Thinking back, Xian had lied more than a couple of times already, like back in The Lord of the Rings. That's the situation. We woke up a couple of days ago and realized it's too late to find and seal the Buddha statue before its power activates. So we have to borrow the mortals. I believe the people here, from mafias, to businessmen, to police forces, and foreign spies have the information systems to gather the Buddha statue's related info. How many powers entered the tomb after the foreigner escaped with the Buddha head? What pieces of the statue did they take away? Where are the pieces right now? Many of the people here were educated. Xian's talks of cultivation, seals, destruction, and time limit hammered their reasoning minds. However, they had to ask what ought to be asked so as to not get fooled. A foreigner stood up and said, although the Japanese captives are in evidence, but forgive my rudeness, are you the only two people who destroyed the Japanese army last night? It is difficult for a materialist to believe your words, especially with regard to Chinese gods and Xians. To put it frankly, I do not believe a Buddha statue can destroy the world. I hope you can provide us with solid proof or I will back out of this meeting. Sure. I will prove it. Xian held a silver plate in his hand and said to Wang Xia through the mines, control the tactical nukes with your demon energy 3 should be powerful enough. Xian then said to the people in the room, I have said that we are the cultivators who guarded the Buddha statue. If you cannot contribute to finding the Buddha statue, there is no need for your existence. Cultivators do not fear the power of the mortal world as we will prove. You will either follow my orders or die. The choice is in your hands. The opportunity for demonstration quickly came with the arrival of the Japanese Navy. These measly few ships represented an absolute force in Shanghai, enough to bombard and barricade the whole city if Xian and Wang Xia were not here. The Japanese's retaliation came too fast. People did not get the 2 to 3 days of buffer they expected and terror clouded the whole city. The citizens did not know that these ships were originally headed toward the Pacific Ocean. It was the unexpected incident in Shanghai that drew the ships to the city by orders. Xian and Wang Xia led the influential people to the harbor as chaos was imminent to Shanghai. There was not a single other person on this busy harbor. The Japanese Navy brought to it tranquility. The ships halted some distance from the harbor without firing. Many concessions were located not far from the harbor so any shots could carry drastic outcomes. The ship's order was only to barricade Shanghai and not bombard the harbor. A destroyed harbor would require many men and supplies to repair after the recapture. Wang Xia was a person that would take the citizens' well-being into consideration and refrain from going overboard. Xian on the other hand truly did not care for the lives of the citizens, whether they belonged to Japan, the US, or the Communist Party. His plans always centered around Team China. This Xian wouldn't change until he stepped into the 4th stage. Upon arrival at the harbor, Wang Xia held onto his silver plate and said to Xian, the tactical nukes are wrapped inside demon energy and are invisible to the bare eyes. Are you sure you want to enhance their power with demon energy also? I am afraid the power might destroy the harbor. Xian gazed at the ships in the distance and replied, it doesn't matter anymore, maybe I should say this is step 2 of the plan. Wang Xia was confused and quickly followed up, what do you mean? Why is destroying the harbor your second step? Xian gave him a smile then turned to the other people. The Japanese Navy is planning to block off Shanghai's harbors. The situation looks like surrendering is not an option. Their ships won't come near the city and you won't be able to escape before their army captures Shanghai. My request is only one thing, assist me in finding the Buddha statue, or let the world fall to destruction. Watch clearly. This is a bit from the Buddha statue. Its power will far exceed your imagination. He took out a piece of rock from his bag. The rock floated as soon as it came out. Wang Xia nearly cried upon seeing it. He halted himself and immediately contacted Xian through the silver plate. Did you really scrape a piece off the Buddha head? We would be done if we lose this piece. How could you? It's something else. Xian said. Left over from the materials used for the sky stick. This new material has anti-gravity property but crafting is difficult and has other flaws. Xian answered then threw the rock to Wang Xia. He said aloud, use it to destroy the Japanese ships. Wang Xia caught the rock. It was cool to the touch. The piece appeared like a rock but was metal on the inside. He nodded then stepped onto the sky stick. The influential people's eyes twitched from the sight. Their eyes became fixed at the sky stick. It did not excrete any flame or air because it was powered by chi. The sky stick had a faint sheen to it when it floated. The flat and smooth shape looked nothing like a mechanical object to these people. It was instead similar to a flying sword. Those who were Chinese indeed murmured flying sword and the foreigners dropped their jaws. A mix of fanaticism and greed took over their faces when Wang Xia levitated. The people here had great power in Shanghai and obtained detailed reports of Team China since the first incident that they caused. The reports described their powers in depth and one of the point was the flying swords. However, these people wouldn't believe such rumors given their status. But the actual sight of this legendary item drew out the fanaticism inside them more than any other people. Gods and Xian were beings of immortality in Chinese mythology. No one ever imagined that they actually existed in the world. Even if the truth behind Team China were 1 in 10,000, even if all they could beg for was a pill, the temptation was immense for mere mortals. Money, political power, and authorities would follow them to the grave after a few decades. However, the temptation of living hundreds of years and perhaps forever could drive anyone in this world crazy. This desire erupted from their hearts when they believed Xian and Wang Xia to be gods and Xian. Wang Xia flew toward the ships. The ships weren't packed next to each other so that they could quickly retaliate without losing formation when under assault. The Japanese Navy officers were well trained. Or else they wouldn't have obtained a series of victories after attacking Pearl Harbor. Coincidences did not exist in large-scale battles as they did in small-scale battles. Wang Xia wasn't in the mood to ponder. A sense of anger continued to build up the closer he came to the ships. He was a typical nationalist youth. He knew this world was nothing more than a movie world created by God. Yet, the sight of the Japanese army displaying their arrogance in Chinese land ignited a sea of anger within him. The biggest shame of a soldier wasn't losing the battle, but to witness the things that he protected getting smashed. Even without the order from Xian, he was going to enhance the tactical nukes upon battle. He did not have the rationality to consider the aftermath of the harbor at this moment. Wang Xia came near the ships in the blink of an eye with the speed of the sky stick. All his demon energy concentrated together. The 3 tactical nukes slowly floated down. He also created several bomb creatures that accompanied the tactical nukes. These creatures were the key to enhancing the nuke's power. Once done, Wang Xia headed back to the harbor on the sky stick. The navies on the ships finally registered and started a commotion because it was not even a minute from Wang Xia's appearance and flying away. 3 bright spots suddenly burst with radiance when Wang Xia returned to the harbor. Several on the harbor who never took their eyes off the ships covered their eyes with their hands and wailed. The rest had to turn their heads away. 3 mushroom clouds rose from the sea as the ships were crushed to pieces. Huge tidal waves swept toward the harbor along with the shock waves. The first ships that met the tidal waves, both big and small, were thrown over. Many crashed into each other or carried inside the tidal waves. The 40-meter high waves and countless remains of wrecked ships raised the buildings on the harbor and continued onward to the people standing there. Out on the ocean, the mushroom cloud was still roiling, but the Japanese Navy could no longer be seen. The tactical nukes by themselves possessed enormous force. The demon energy's enhancement further raised them to a force to be reckoned with, both for a modern army and for player teams. A Wang Xia with demon energy and high explosive bombs had the power to pose a threat to Zheng. The harbor was almost completely destroyed after the explosions. The tens of meters high tidal waves crushed the smaller ships to ashes. As the people who stood nearest to the ocean, Team China, and the influential leaders were exposed under the gigantic tidal wave. Xian slid his fingers across his glasses when the tidal waves and ruins of ships were under 20 meters away. Such a short distance shouldn't take the waves more than a second to consume the people at their approaching speed. Everyone opened their mouths and screamed soundlessly. They had lost the ability to utter any sounds. Dong. The waves crashed into a unique colored glowing barrier in front of Xian. It was a wrecked ship that collided with the barrier. I can block it. I can block it. The glasses hypnosis activated and brought Xian into the perfect state to utilize the Lambda driver. The Lambda driver then activated with his thought. The power of faith turned into a barrier and separated everyone from the tidal waves. It was the ultimate shield given the toughness it displayed. The waves and wrecked ships crashing into the barrier did not even manage to reduce the barrier's intensity. Everything crumpled upon touching the barrier, including huge rocks and steel. There was obviously more to the barrier than its defensive power. The waves came and went fast. The people were standing some slight distance away from the ocean and on a raised platform, so the flood did not get to their height. Once the initial wave subsided, the rest only could reach less and less distance from the ocean, and eventually all the waves returned to the ocean. With the tidal waves gone, the people finally got to see the ruins left behind. Beyond the harbor were the mushroom clouds still roiling. Huge quantity of water were vaporized, resulting in a layer of fog on the ocean. The wind blowing from the ocean was still hot, but everyone was frozen with their eyes and mouths wide open. Their minds stopped at the moment the Japanese Navy were destroyed. This is the destructive power of a tiny piece of the Buddha statue. The rest of the Buddha will explode in the same manner after 6 days. The chain reaction from all explosions will multiply their destructiveness over 10,000 folds and bring the world to an end. Xian massaged his determined eyes that were a result of the hypnosis, then said to the people. Wang Xia descended with the sky stick. Using demon energy on 3 tactical nukes at the same time nearly drained him of all energy. Fortunately, his physical fitness allowed him to remain standing. Though he was not any stronger than a normal person at this point. Xian stepped in front of Wang Xia casually and said to the rest of the people here, tell me of your decision from the choices I have given you. Give me the information systems you have to find the Buddha statue, or I will kill you now, or wait for the destruction of the world after 6 days. Xian's words shocked these people awake. They looked to each other with unbelievable expressions. A mafia leader scratched his head and said, is this some sort of illusion? It looks realistic, but if you want to use all of Qingbang's informants with just this. A light glided across his neck horizontally before he could finish talking. His head flew up 2 meters. Blood spurted from the neck as his head came back down and splattered the people near him. Their minds went blank for several seconds before the terror struck. Xian looked at them calmly. This isn't a request nor demand. This is an order. I don't know if you have heard of complete authority, which is what I am doing. Cooperate with me if you wish to live. I will reward you appropriately afterward. Refuse and your life, the power you represent, and your family will disappear. I will ask once more. Do you want to cooperate with the information systems in your hands? Complete authority was using the advantage of high standing and power to bully other people. Just as Xian had said, when strength exceeded a limit, they could take actions without consideration of the situation. That's the situation if my deduction from emulating Honglu is correct. Xian can only use this tactic to find the Buddha statue. We have too little time, only 6 days. We aren't in the 21st century where information is explosive across the globe. Communication and transportation are limiting factors here. In order to investigate all the major powers in 6 days, we will need the sky sticks and huge sources of information. Without the information, we won't know where the enemies lie no matter how fast we can fly. It would be nothing short of committing suicide, right? Zheng sat on a boulder and twirled the hair in front of his forehead. The second night since receiving the mission had fallen. Zheng's party still hadn't received another message from Xian this whole day. The other end was quiet as a rock that sank to the bottom of the ocean. Slowly but surely, a hint of panic brewed within Tenyi and Lu Yu. But as Zheng deduced their situation through the third stage, the two gradually calmed down. Speaking of which, Lu Yu suddenly laughed. That's the situation. Isn't that Xian's line? When did you begin to copy him? Or were you emulating him instead? Zheng smiled with a sigh. I want to emulate his thinking process, but unfortunately, I still can't do it after reaching mid-fourth stage. It's incredibly strange if you think about it. I can't figure out why perhaps his way of thinking isn't even human. Only psychopaths could think like that. I suppose if normal people like us try to emulate him, we will turn into men with 3 less traits. 3 less traits? Lu Yu asked curiously. Expressionless, wordless, emotionless. That's the state of Xian. Haha. Zheng laughed. They joked for a bit, then Zheng turned to Imhotep. Have you decided to come with us to God's dimension? If you did, then I will go back to exchange the bracelet after this event. That can bring the two of you to God's dimension. The only non-players here were Imhotep and Ang Sunamuan. No one knew where Jonathan went off to. Imhotep replied, if this tomb does not have the elixir of immortality, we will go with you to God's dimension. However, I have one last question. Will it be dangerous to Ang Sunamuan? Zheng exhaled and pondered for a moment. Danger is proportional to gain. The more danger it is, the more gain accompanies it. You might be able to live thousands of years, but she's a normal human. Age and diseases will follow her life. The only guarantee I can make to you is God's realm has the elixir of immortality. At the same time, it's extremely dangerous, both to her, to you, and me. I won't lie to you, but even with my strength, I could die in some movie all of a sudden. So you have to think through it carefully. Imhotep hesitated. He stared at the gorgeous woman sitting next to him with such intense and serious expression. Time slowly passed without him taking his eyes away. Finally, the lust that he saw on her face brought his head to a nod. If this tomb does not have the elixir of immortality, we will go with you to God's dimension. I have a little wish. Please protect her as much as you can. Protect her until she becomes as strong as you. Can you? Zheng nodded. Of course. You will be our comrade once you join Team China. Just don't betray the team and I will do my best to protect you. Welcome to Team China. Imhotep smiled and was about to speak when he heard a blood-curdling scream echoed from the distance. That was Jonathan's voice. Shortly after, they saw him running out from behind the trees and crying, "Run! The yellow turbans have revived." 5 huge monsters followed him out from the trees. Their bodies were one size bigger than the last time they met in Shanghai. The monsters grew again.